Are you financially free or just pretending? 70% of people think they've mastered the basics of financial freedom, yet they're still drowning in debt paycheck to paycheck. Think you're different? Let's find out. Ignoring even one of the 25 common financial mistakes I'm about to reveal could cost you years of progress toward true independence. Many believe financial freedom is simply about earning more or saving harder. They think sheer willpower will somehow magically solve everything. But the harsh truth is, you can burn yourself out working 2 jobs, sacrificing vacations for years, and still end up broke, stressed, and feeling utterly powerless. It's not your income trapping you, it's invisible traps right under your nose. I know, I fell for almost all of them and didn't realize the damage until it was done. Looking back, I wish someone had warned me that freedom has less to do with how much you earn and everything to do with the silent saboteurs in your financial habits. These mistakes seem harmless, even smart at first glance, but they're insidious chains, dragging you down while you convince yourself everything's fine. I'm exposing 25 of these traps, and recognizing even one could be the difference between decades of struggle and early financial freedom. The 25th one. Almost every man realizes it far too late, but we'll get there. First, a question. Are you truly in control, or just surviving, hoping next month will magically be better? Take a deep breath. What if the thing holding you back isn't some external force, but something you're unknowingly repeating? Meet Jake. He's 35, works 50-hour weeks, and everyone thinks he's doing great. Bills are paid, rent's on time, he even treats himself to fancy dinners. From the outside, he's the picture of responsible adulthood, maybe even ahead of the curve. But there's a secret Jake hides, a quiet panic that erupts anytime an unexpected expense pops up. He knows his income, but almost nothing about his monthly outflow. He jokes with friends about being bad with money, but the truth gnaws at him at night, fueling restless nights wondering if he'll ever truly get ahead. He believed hard work alone would buy him freedom, but his reality is a relentless cycle of working harder just to stay afloat. It's not laziness or recklessness. Jake is doing exactly what millions do, confusing effort with progress. One Friday night, after paying yet another late fee on a credit card he swore he'd pay off next month, Jake sat in his car and asked himself a question he'd avoided for years. Why doesn't anything change, no matter how hard I try? He didn't know it then, but that moment was the beginning of cracking the shell he'd built around his finances. Jake's story isn't unique, it's a reflection, maybe even yours, but a turning point awaits for him, and for you if you're willing to see what he saw next. Jake's problem wasn't his income. It was his autopilot lifestyle, the deadliest financial disease nobody warns you about. He thought budgeting was for control freaks, tracking expenses was boring, and retirement planning was something for later. Each seemingly harmless excuse piled up until the day he realized he'd been driving blind for over a decade. Most men live like this. They trust their salary to bail them out, banking on job loyalty for security. But behind that hope lurks a bitter truth: the world doesn't care about your tenure, and money doesn't stay where it's not watched. It leaks, silently, like a slow drip behind a wall. You don't see the damage until it's destroyed everything you built. Pause for a moment. What if your routine isn't stability, but a slow-motion crash disguised as normal life? This trap isn't just ignorance, it's comfort. Inaction feels safer than confronting the uncomfortable mess you've ignored. Jake learned this the hard way, avoiding bank statements for months only to discover too late that his stable life was a house of cards. He could have kept pretending, but denial has an expiration date, and for most, it hits hardest when least expected. We're about to dissect exactly how these hidden mistakes fuel this autopilot and which one could silently destroy your freedom first. Let's start with the basics. Mistakes so common they seem harmless, yet silently sabotage everything else. First, not knowing exactly how much you spend each month. Jake thought he had a rough average until he tracked every dollar and discovered he was losing money on things he barely remembered buying. It's like driving a car without a dashboard. You might feel in control until the engine dies without warning. Second, living without an emergency fund. The truth is simple: if you lose your job tomorrow and have zero savings, dignity vanishes fast. Jake thought borrowing from friends was his contingency plan, but friends run out of patience quicker than you run out of money. 6 months of living expenses safely stashed away, that's your buffer between calm and panic. Third, ignoring financial education. Many men dismiss learning about money, believing it's too complicated or not their thing. But ignorance is profitable for banks, credit card companies, and the system that keeps you dependent. Jake remained trapped because he thought working harder was the only skill worth mastering. He learned too late that understanding how money actually moves is what separates the free from the enslaved. Fourth, pretending debt isn't real. Debt doesn't disappear when you ignore it. It multiplies in the darkness, feeding on your silence. Jake avoided opening statements just to protect his weekend mood, but the anxiety always returned Monday morning with more interest accrued. Confronting debt brutally, line by line, is the first act of financial courage. No one talks about it because it's uncomfortable, but discomfort now is cheaper than disaster later. Fifth, spending like tomorrow is guaranteed. Most men assume they'll always have their job, health, and stable income, but life doesn't care about your plans. It cares about your preparation. Jake spent his entire tax refund on a new phone and a weekend getaway, figuring he'd replace the money next month. Then came a layoff and the phone didn't pay the rent. These 5 blind spots form the foundation of financial stagnation. But it's just the beginning. What comes next is sneakier because it wears the mask of success. After plugging the obvious leaks, most men fall into traps that seem like rewards for hard work. Jake did too. Number 6, buying to impress. He thought new shoes, fancy dinners, and extravagant gadgets would buy him respect. But respect bought with receipts is shallow and fleeting. He learned painfully that ego is the most expensive thing a man can feed, and the saddest part, while he fueled his image, his family silently paid the price. Missed birthdays, postponed dreams, and quiet anxiety at home every time another bill arrived. Number 7, the credit card mentality. Jake told himself, "I'll pay later, no problem. 10 payments for a shirt, 12 for a TV. It felt like freedom, but it was a contract with his future self, and that future self hated him for it. If you can't buy something outright without hurting your budget, you can't buy it, period. The card isn't bad. The illusion behind it is. Number 8, the seduction of discounts. Jake once bragged about a coat he got for 70% off. He didn't need a coat, he needed the feeling of saving money without actually saving money. Buying what's cheap but useless is still wasting dollars you claim you need so badly. Retailers know this, which is why liquidation is the loudest word in every storefront. Number 9, lifestyle inflation. A raise arrives, and so does a new car, a bigger apartment, or pricier weekends. Jake's salary doubled in 5 years, but his freedom remained frozen because every pay bump raised his spending ceiling. Earning more is useless if you spend at the same reckless pace. Warren Buffett still lives in the same house he bought in the 50s. That's not miserliness, it's strategy. Number 10, confusing comfort with luxury. Jake thought a fancy dinner every week was self-care, but self-care that puts you deeper in debt isn't care. It's self-sabotage disguised as indulgence. Real comfort is a secure home, a healthy meal, a bed where you sleep without worrying how you'll pay for it tomorrow. Luxury is paying for the illusion that you've made it long before you actually have. These 5 traps silently keep good men broke while convincing them they're living well. But the true cost only appears when life tests their fragile version of wealth, and that test is coming. Even when Jake stopped wasting money on ego traps, he still hit a wall. Because without a plan, discipline leaks through cracks you don't even see. Number 11, living without clear financial goals. Jake thought having money left at the end of the month was a goal. It's not, it's luck. A goal has a number, a timeline, and a method. Save $10,000 by December, invest $200 every paycheck, pay off the debt by next summer. Without it, you drift, and drifting feels peaceful until you hit the rocks. Number 12, trusting retirement will take care of itself. Jake believed Social Security would keep him afloat someday. Then he did the math and realized it barely covers basic survival. The system keeps millions believing a salary is forever, a pension is guaranteed, and the government won't let them down. But if you wait to discover the truth at 60, there's no fixing it afterward. Number 13, skipping the monthly budgeting ritual. Jake thought budgeting was tedious, something for spreadsheet obsessives. But a man without a budget is a man shooting in the dark. Shooting in the dark invites surprises, and money hates surprises. Now, at the start of each month, Jake writes down what's coming in, what must go out, and what should remain invested. It's a map, Without it, you wander and call it freedom. Number 14. Relying on a single income stream. Jake felt secure in his corporate job until his manager called him on a Friday and ended a decade-long illusion. One money source means one point of failure. If it dries up, your life doesn't diminish. It crashes. And when it crashes, it's not just you who falls, it's your partner who has to hold it together while you panic, your kids who feel the tension without understanding, your parents who worry but don't ask, a shared failure silently carried by everyone who depends on you. Today, Jake still has his primary job, but he also freelances and invests. Multiple small streams outweigh one large river that could dry up tomorrow. Number 15. Never tracking your progress. For years, Jake told himself, I'm probably better off than last year, but feelings lie. Numbers don't. Once he started tracking his net worth monthly, the story changed. Seeing the line move or remain flat is an uncomfortable truth, but it's the only truth that matters. These 5 mistakes are silent momentum killers. Fixing them doesn't guarantee overnight riches, but ignoring them guarantees you'll wake up one day shocked by how little you've actually built. And if you think those mistakes hurt, wait until you see what your own mind is doing behind your back. Jake thought fixing habits would be enough, but what he didn't see, and what most men never question, is how their own beliefs about money silently betray them. Number 16. Believing money is for greedy people. Jake grew up hearing money doesn't buy happiness or rich people are corrupt, so whenever he earned a little extra, he found ways to spend it quickly, as if holding on to it would transform him into someone he despised. The truth is, money reveals your character. It doesn't change it. Good people do more good when they're not drowning in bills. Number 17. Romanticizing poverty. Some wear scarcity as a badge of humility, bragging about surviving on scraps, as if it's noble. Jake once prided himself on being the guy who makes it work with little. But poverty isn't virtue. It's a condition that punishes you and everyone who depends on you. Escaping it isn't selfish. It's responsible. Number 18. Believing wealth is impossible for you. Jake used to think riches were for heirs, tech geniuses, or lucky gamblers. Ordinary men like him? Never. But wealth isn't magic. It's math. It's small choices repeated for so long they become an unstoppable force. When he studied ordinary millionaires, he saw consistency beats brilliance every time. Number 19. Fear of investing. Jake feared losing money, so he clung to his comfort zone, a savings account that paid less than inflation. So, while he felt secure, his money was silently shrinking. He finally faced the truth: risk exists whether you invest or not. But knowledge transforms blind risk into calculated risk, and that changes everything. Number 20. Waiting for the perfect moment to start. Jake told himself he'd start investing once he got a raise, once the debts were paid, once life felt stable. But there's no perfect day. There's only today, and accumulated excuses enough to bury your future alive. He started with $50 just to prove to himself that action mattered more than the size of the first step. These beliefs cost Jake years of progress. But they were only half the battle, because even the right mindset fails without using time and money correctly, and the final traps are the cruelest for those who think they're already playing smart. Jake's final mistakes weren't about what he did wrong day to day, but what he failed to put into motion early enough. Number 21. Thinking investing is for the rich. He believed you needed thousands to start, so he waited. Meanwhile, friends who started with $50 a month were building silent snowballs. When Jake realized this, he'd lost precious compounding years you can't buy back, no matter how hard you try afterward. Number 22. Leaving money idle in savings. Jake prided himself on having an emergency fund, but never questioned why that fund shrank while he slept. Inflation is a slow leak in your bucket, constant, silent, relentless. Savings accounts feel safe because they're simple, but security without growth is just slow decay. He learned to compartmentalize his money. Emergency funds stay liquid. Everything else must earn its keep. Number 23. Investing blindly. When Jake finally started, he copied others, chased trends, and trusted tips from friends who knew as little as he did. He got burned and blamed investments instead of his ignorance. Money put to work without understanding is money on a casino table. Only education transforms investing from gambling to strategy. Number 24. Spending investment returns too soon. Jake celebrated small stock gains by booking vacations, He didn't realize that spending gains kills the exponential magic of compounding. Reinvesting is the difference between small wins and generational wealth. It's the silent engine that transforms 10,000 into 100,000, but only if you leave it alone long enough. And the 25th mistake, the most brutal of all, is navigating life without a long-term plan. Jake believed he'd tackle retirement later, focus on the present, and trust the future would be kind. But the future doesn't care about your feelings. It only rewards preparation. When he finally mapped out a real plan, he saw how each choice today buys him freedom or sells his time cheaply tomorrow. Most men never write down how they truly want life to be at 40, 50, or 60, and so life happens to them. When they wake up, they're too old to restart and too young to stop working. But you're hearing this now, so you no longer have that excuse. You've seen what Jake ignored for years and what millions still pretend isn't killing their freedom one silent day at a time. These 25 mistakes don't seem deadly in isolation. A skipped budget won't ruin you. An impulsive splurge won't empty your account overnight. But together, repeated year after year, they steal decades you'll never get back. Jake didn't change his life because he was smarter or luckier than you. He changed because he was brutally honest with himself. He admitted he was living on autopilot, fueling his ego, hiding from the numbers, trusting the system to bail him out later. The moment he confronted that truth, everything shifted. Not instantly, but consistently, month after month. He didn't win the lottery. He didn't launch $1 million business. He simply stopped making excuses and started making decisions that compounded in his favor. The question isn't whether you'll make mistakes. You already have. The question is whether you'll continue repeating them now that you can no longer claim ignorance. Most men will nod, feel inspired for 5 minutes, then do nothing. And life will punish that choice, sooner or later. But if you're still here, you're not like most. You're dangerous to your old self because you can't unsee what you now see. Now, pick just one of these mistakes, the one that burns in your gut the most, and fix it today. Not tomorrow. Not when the timing feels perfect. Today. Tell me which one hits hardest and what you'll do about it in the comments below. I read every single one because seeing men break this cycle is the only reason I do this. Remember, knowledge that remains untouched is just another trap. Use it or continue paying for it with your time, your peace, and your freedom. Jake woke up before it was too late. Now it's your turn. If you stayed until this very last minute, you've already proven you're not the kind of man who sleeps through life on autopilot. You're here because something deep down knows you deserve more than endless bills, quiet anxiety, and a future that looks exactly like your past. So do it now. Leave a comment below telling me which of these 25 mistakes you're done tolerating. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. If you found value here, share this with someone trapped in the same pitfalls. An uncomfortable truth at the right time can save a lifetime of regrets. You've wasted enough time hoping money will fix itself. Now build a life you don't need to escape. See you next time.